everyone, and welcome to our show, Dede Talks, the Art of Specialty Lenses. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Jen Harthan. Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much for asking me to be here. I'm so excited. When you first asked me to be here, I was like, I am not worthy to be here, but I am so excited. I love watching this and hearing everything about everyone else. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, but I am in Chicago right now. I am a professor at Illinois College of Optometry, and I'm chief of the cornea and contact lens clinic. So I spend all of my time here and I love what I do. And then I also work 1 day a week at a private practice. So that's where I spend all my time.
Well, and I also know that you've gotten a lot of awards recently as well. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. No, it's great. It's a good, I'm surrounded by a lot of great people that I work with. So I don't think that it's just me. I attribute a lot of my success to those around me as well.
Well, and I know we met several years ago at one of the GPLI residence meetings. So that was a lot of fun to be able to watch you kind of grow in the business as we go along. So that's been really fun. So let's kind of get into some questions. So you're an educator. As an educator, what do you classify, especially to your students, as specialty lenses?
That's a great question. And I think that sometimes one of the questions that they ask us, and I think we can look at that a couple of different ways. It's really, what is the definition of specialty? Sometimes we're like, oh, everything's specialty if we want to make it that way. Right. But it's really, how do we customize a lens for a patient's particular condition or their ocular surface or their cornea to really maximize their vision, their health, their comfort, so that they are as successful as they possibly can be through a particular lens design. So that's how we kind of look at what specialty means for our students.
Right. Well, and I know that at the university, you're kind of on the cutting edge of some of the technologies. Are you using things like higher order aberrations and such as that with your sclerals or multifocals or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we're starting to do some work with the higher order aberrations, but we're definitely doing a little profilometry and doing impression-based and, looking at free-form lenses. But really, our goal is to provide our patients with the best that we can, as well as providing excellence in education. We want our students to receive the education that they deserve, what they're coming to us for, before they go out into their own practice. But I also love that we learn from them. They ask us great questions and they push us, and we need to make sure that we're on our game as well, because if we don't know, they're going to call us out. So I think it's a win-win, situation, and that we're trying to teach them as much as we can, but they also are pushing us as well.
Oh, absolutely. And like for me, they know more about social media and such than I do. Sure. It's like, so I learn a lot from them on that aspect. So do you consider multifocals to fall in the category of specialty lenses? And what do you consider whenever you're fitting a new or existing patient in a GP multifocal?
So I think that's also an interesting question. I think that they can, right? So I think it depends on how much customization we want to do. And I think whenever we're starting a multifocal fit, no matter what we're doing, is really important to control our patients' expectations. And it's really interesting that you asked this question, because we had this exact patient in clinic today. And a patient was referred for a multifocal fitting, and the patient was told, go see them because they're going to give you like the sun and the moon, and they're going to give you the best vision with this particular lens design. And I was like, okay, let's stop the train a little bit and let's have a conversation about what are your expectations. And I'm going to tell you what we can do with these different lens designs. So I think that multifocals can fall within that category because we can do some more customizations. We can, decenter the optics, we can control pupil size, we can do, center distance, center near, we can, different diameters, things like that. But I really think it's so important to have that conversation up front, control their expectations, and just do a lot of education. And I think that's so beneficial.
And choosing the right design that matches their expectations. I know we tend to do a lot of even still segmented multifocal GPs, because patients, especially the engineer types, tend to have that, I want distance and I want near and I want it all and I want it right now. And,
Yes.
it's setting those expectations of, I'm sorry, you're not 20 anymore.
Sure.
And doing it kindly, which is, was great for me until I turned 40. It was like, what do you mean I can't see up close anymore?
It is so true. And, we can learn so much from our patients just by listening to them. What have they, failed with in the past, or, what do they do all day? And, we might have in our mind that we're going to go with one particular design. Well, that's not going to be successful for them based on how they use their eyes and what their vision demands are. So, just spending a little bit of time, like listening to them versus maybe sometimes we get in our own way. So putting that aside and just having, some of those conversations.
Well, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. And I think, would you consider that your greatest tip for multifocal patients?
I think that's one of them. Yes, is definitely listening, setting expectations. But then also, I think also don't be afraid to try something else if your first option doesn't work.
Right.
I think that, sometimes if one option maybe isn't as successful, some patients and even some practitioners are like, oh, well, you're not a candidate for contact lenses anymore. You're not a candidate for this. Well, no, it just maybe they're not a candidate for this particular design.
Right.
So let's try something else. So those are just some tips.
Well, and I think patients sometimes change their expectations. They come in saying, I want this and I want this and I want this. And when you give them that, it's like, that's not really what I wanted. So again, it goes back to interviewing and re-interviewing those types of patients.
Yes.
So switching gears a little bit away from multifocals, when you're working with other specialty designs, how do you choose the lens that fits the patient's needs?
Part of it depends on their surface. Part of it depends on the shape of the eye. Part of it depends on, are we fitting the patient for, corneal regularity? Do they also have ocular surface issues? And do I have a large fissure? Do I have a small fissure? What are my goals and what are their goals? And can I achieve that with a particular design? Part of it too, at an academic institution, one of our goals with the students is that we want our students to have exposure to everything, right? We want them to have exposure fitting multiple different designs, so that when they get out into practice, they have as much exposure as possible so that they can, select for themselves what they want to do. But also, it's hard because a lot of our patients don't have finances to maybe pay for maybe all the bells and whistles. So we also have to sometimes get creative, and, sometimes like we love sclerals, but that may not always be our go-to because other lenses work just as well. So really looking at patients' corneal tomography and their elevation maps, and can we get away with just doing a corneal GP and things like that. So really taking a look at the whole picture of the patient versus just picking a lens because it's fun, or maybe it's, maybe easier to fit, those types of things.
Well, and I do think that, as a consultant, looking at the whole picture is one of the things that we almost have to do to help practitioners choose the right designs and those kinds of things. So we tend to ask a lot of questions. We may ask what the patient's job is, or what their visual demands are. And it's interesting that a lot of times we don't get the answers to that information. And I think it's all part of getting that well-rounded aspect to the patient, so you can match the right design to the patient as well.
Absolutely.
So how do you feel your skills in other areas, and we're going to touch on some of these other areas in just a few minutes, help you to be a better contact lens professional?
So that's an interesting. I think I am a very technical person. Like I really love to put pieces of the puzzle together to come up with the best solution for a patient. So I think that in different areas of my life, I'm like that, where I like to kind of put pieces of puzzles together to kind of come up with that. But I also family is very important, and it's kind of been like that from the beginning, and just the way that like we've put different things into practice. And I kind of see that with contact lenses and optometry in general, but also the contact lens community. I see it as a very tight-knit community.
Mhm.
And I treat my colleagues and those in the contact lens community and even patients like extended family,
Right.
because that's how I was kind of brought up. You kind of go out of your way just to take care of others. And that's what I try to do. And not just in contact lenses, but with other things as well.
That's the perfect lead in for kind of your artistic talents that that we're going to touch on right now. I know that you have a daughter and that you spend a good amount of time with her, especially through COVID. We talked about that a little bit earlier, doing baking. And then the interesting piece to me was you have a background in construction.
Yes.
And that background in construction helps you to put all those pieces together. So walk us through some of that just a little bit.
So I am not going to say that I'm like this amazing cook, but my daughter and I love to bake. And during COVID, it happened right when she was ending preschool and then starting kindergarten. So doing online kindergarten was rough, but she loves to bake. So during COVID, that was kind of like our opportunity. We would, watch YouTube videos, and we got purchased kids' cookbooks, and every week we would try something new. And in terms of baking, it wasn't anything super fancy, but they were more treats. And then what we would do with a lot of these treats is then we would deliver them to people, to maybe like relatives who weren't feeling well, or some of our neighbors. And, just a handwritten note to just say, we're thinking about you. And, that's the thing that my parents and my grandparents would do too, is, make treats, and we deliver them growing up. So it's just something that I can pass along to her, and she loves to do that. So that was something that we've enjoyed. And every week we try to do something different.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I did that with my girls as well when they were small. So it builds a bond with the families.
Yeah, it is.
As well as everything else. Okay, now hit on this little bit of construction thing, because I'm
So
very intrigued.
This is something that most people don't know, but when I was younger, so growing up, I'm the oldest grandkid on both sides. And my grandfather was a high school teacher, but during the summers, he had his own construction business. So he was like, you're going to learn how to do this. And I was like, yay. But no, it actually was great. It was so much. I appreciate so much now looking back on it. It was such a great bonding experience with him. And then my dad also did that as well. My dad just retired, 45 years in education. He was a school superintendent. And then he worked alongside my grandpa. So one of the pictures that you will see is actually my parents' house that my dad and my grandfather built, and then I was able to help them with.
Oh,
so like the deck in front, I helped them. I helped shingle the roof, but my grandpa taught me how to do blueprints, to design from the ground up, and just everything about it. And then they taught me how to like renovate. So then another picture that you see is a renovation of an office. So like the painting and just all the design that goes into it. So so if people don't know that, but I'm pretty handy. So I know how to build a house. But yeah, my parents still live there, but my dad and my grandpa built my parents' house, and they built my aunt and uncle's house, and they built my grandparents' house. And I was able to have a hand in doing that ever since I was sixth grade. They started me in sixth grade, and I worked all the way through college every summer working with them. So yeah, that's something that most people don't know. But even now my dad will say, hey, you free? You want to come to Minnesota and help me with a project? So it's kind of a joke because I'm the only one who knows how to do anything in the family out of all like my siblings and cousins.
Because how funny.
Yeah.
Do you think the design helps you kind of with your contact lens design stuff as well?
Definitely. I have always loved design. And I think I always say that if there was another profession, I would love to do any type of design, especially like renovation and house flipping, things like that. But definitely, I have always loved design. I love how things are built. And I think that's where part of the love of contact lenses has come from.
Yeah, I can understand that completely. All right, Jen, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed having you and learning so much about you and all of the things that you do. And thank you for being out there teaching these students and helping to grow the business.
Thank you so much for the invitation. This was so fun. And thank you for doing this. This is great. I love to learn from everyone else. And I'm just honored to be here. So thank you.
And we all learn from you on a daily basis. So thank you. I'd like to thank ABB for their support of our program. Stay tuned for future episodes of Dede Talks, the Art of Specialty Lenses.